From the shelter-in-place studio of Leslie Jackson, welcome to another video episode of The Leslie Show, in which I talk with guitarist, composer, teacher, and audio engineer Dan Fries. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining me in here.
It is a pleasure.
We're in the elevator. We have a few floors to go, and I'm a big wig A&R executive.
Uh-oh.
What do you tell me?
Probably a joke.
Okay, so I'm with you in the elevator, and I go, hey, famous A&R executive, this is my friend Dan Fries. He's a guitarist. Yeah. He cut his teeth in Indian classical music and then just got so good he could make fun of it, and then he did the same thing with flamenco.
Oh,
now he's a great engineer and producer, and he's also a filmmaker. This is Dan. You guys
I'm a
introduce
filmmaker.
Yourselves. Sure.
Wow.
I mean,
I'm doing everything.
That tells you both what I don't know, but a little bit about what you should know.
What do I say? Hi, nice to meet you. What you working on?
Nice.
An elevator is one of those places where I think it takes a special personality to be able to break the ice with someone who, from whom they have something to gain. I do marketing for my services as a musician online for the gigs that I play. Come get me if you have a need for me is kind of my line. And I could be way better. I could be way better at trying to coax people into using my services for this or that. But I kind of like that that the people who find me are the ones who actually want me.
Instead of you cajoled them or had one over on them.
Right, yeah, I mean, I don't want to have the whole relationship tainted with, hey, I manipulated you into.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. There was greater discomfort before I even was able to put up, a website for myself or pay a photographer to take a picture. Back in my 20s, it was like, well, it's just I love the music and that's all it's about. That's the only thing it's about. And
right. Do you want me to pose or play? What?
Right. I guess we all fight against that to a certain extent.
Well, isn't so much of it is practicing, right? How much when you started to play? I don't know how old you were when you started, but how much did you practice every day?
My main sort of devotion to it happened in a highly committed way when I was in college. I had been reading Nietzsche, and he says, if you want to be a creator, you have to have a blank slate and try to rid yourself of influences. And then I did like a study abroad program. And I remember just being on a train in India, and I had a Walkman with me. There I was, and I brought my music with me because like so many musicians, you get addicted to music. You love it. You want to hear it, right? And here I'm listening to this, and I'm having this experience, which I'm never going to have again. I'm never going to be in that place at that time. And, it was unique and interesting enough that I could say to myself, wow, why haven't I opened all my senses to being present right here with this experience? And I just, I turned off the Walkman, and I think I just didn't turn it on again after that. I started really thinking about this and thinking about the Nietzsche quote I told you. And I decided when I got home then I gave away my stereo system, and all I had was a guitar. And so if I wanted to hear music, I had to play it. It's like asking a heroin addict, look, if you want heroin, you got to go out there and harvest the opium and refine it yourself, right? I mean, so they're going to learn how to produce that stuff real quick. I think it just turbocharged my practicing because I would spend 12 to 14 hours a day with the instrument. I would hear things in my head that I wanted to hear in my ears. And so it forced me into playing that much more. And I spent a couple years like that before I, got good enough, let's say, at flamenco that I started working with other people, and they're like, you need some other influences to so you can get more of a grasp of the genre. And that was true. I'd cultivated my own sort of style in that Nietzschean way of eliminating all influence and starting as much with a blank slate as possible. But then, you got to learn a genre if you're going to try to participate in it.
So where does Indian classical come in there in the timeline?
Indian classical, having grown up in San Francisco, I think when I was in high school, I discovered the Hindustani music and that Ali Akbar Khan was living here. And I made it over to where I live now in Berkeley, just a block from here, St. John's Church. And I saw Zakir Hussain and Ali Akbar Khan performing together. And I was just so fascinated because here were these guys doing this thing that's, it's so amazing, so beautiful and expressive and traditional. And, I'd gone through a phase of like being interested in prog rock when I was maybe sophomore in high school, and so all the time signature changes and everything were so interesting to me. But, there's a limit to what you can do when you're sort of jumping sideways genre-wise versus, building upon this like Himalayan-sized mountain of culture. So so I was immediately taken by that and just kind of tucked it away in the back of my head like, oh, I need to somehow take advantage of the fact that this is right here. In the midst of it, I actually visited India for a second time, so I used it as a time to go explore India a little bit more and purchase a couple of instruments and bring them home. And so I, to this day, I have the sitar and the sarod, and they've unfortunately been mostly gathering dust, although they've had a little bit of love.
But not that training. That training has not been gathering dust.
The training was very helpful, when it comes to all that. I learned a lot from, their exhaustive approach to scales and, just how to completely get the sound of the scale in your head and your hands. In fact, I was teaching a lesson earlier today where I was using something gleaned from that. And, you talk about other being informed by other traditions. I would say the other biggest influence on me was here at UC Berkeley when I was studying there. I went as much as I could with C.K. Ledespo, who's the African drum.
Treat.
He leads an ensemble. He's from Ghana, and he teaches Ghanaian music in the Ewe tradition. So it's all that beat, the kind of,
yes.
I think in jazz they call it the African clave. This thing, go, 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 so it's like a 12/8. You learn to count it in all these different ways. Right. That informed the way that I teach flamenco rhythms is his method.
Right.
Wow. He had to come up with something, and his own unique genius made his classes what they were, because he had to teach a traditional culture, which is learned by the people in it through osmosis. But he had to teach that to a bunch of American kids, and so he came up with the method. Here's this beat, which is ting, go, 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 ting, go. And how did he have us? He had us stomp with the foot and then clap it. And that's, and there's only 3 combinations of things you can do. And everybody can say, all right, I'm either stomping, clapping, or doing them both. And so when I teach the bulerías, which is the least accessible flamenco rhythm, right? It's I use the same technique that he did to teach us. I just break it down step by step, and you learn it in discrete intervals until you get it, and then you can loop it, and then after it's autopilot, you can start you sort of separate your consciousness from the rhythm itself and begin to play with it, maybe put, superimpose more interesting things on top of it.
What did your mom and dad do?
Well, my dad had a regular job. He's an attorney. My mom's a visual artist, so she paints.
Oh.
And yeah, that's her thing. I've inherited from her and maybe pushed through a little bit of her trepidation about putting herself out there. She's an incredible artist, and she's a little too shy. She's very nervous about being judged, negatively judged. And you really have to get through that, right? I mean, because we, especially as artists, we judge ourselves negatively. There's no way to get around that. If you want to get better, you have to judge yourself. And you can't improve something if you haven't identified it. So identifying something that you need to improve is by definition identifying something negative about your art. But she's a very private, kind of introspective person, and but nevertheless has made something of a career of art.
Do you compose?
I do. I have a whole bunch of that's the main thing. You know what? You hit on it. Like, this is what drew me to music is I get caught on the meaning of the word compose, because for me it's more like, do I ever tune into the muse or the universe or whatever and allow myself to hear stuff that then I can translate into music. that for me, whereas I think composing, I also compose, I guess, in the traditional sense. I mean, I went to music school, and I learned how to, write the notes on paper, and I can crank out a song. But I think really what drew me to music and playing it is there are things out there that they're just melodies kind of swimming around, and they when we're lucky enough to have the time and space for it and the preparation, we can let them out. Yeah. So, if you look at my website, how about this? A plug. Daniel Fries Music. How do you spell Fries? Like fries. DANIELFRIES music.com. That's my guitar music page, and it's full of my own compositions. I have another page for my studio, Mr. Freeze Music. How do you spell Freeze? FREEZE. Mr. Freeze Music. Yeah, I went through a discard my last name phase.
That sounds like a Chick Corea song. Mr. Freeze.
That's called Camino de la Luna. It's on my website on one of the older albums. By the same time.
What I love about it is the repetition, and what is that interval?
A major second. I'll break it down. A lot of people ask me to teach this, so it's a repeating arpeggio. We're in A Phrygian, and we're gonna do a Phrygian cadence in A Phrygian, which is gonna be D minor, C, B flat, A. Right. So that's the progression, and now you take this repeated figure over it, which is in the key of A. It's the 5-4-3. So scale tones. 5-4-5-4. Over the 4 chord. 5-4 over D, and then 5-4 over the E, right? And then 5, and this is the one that'll kill you, right? And so now this has become what was a. So let's analyze it. This is fun. D minor, which it is. Then you got the 9 to the octave, 9 octave, or 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, right? And then we got. This would be 3-2, right? 3. So that's the major third of C to the second. Second's a bit funny out of context, but it sounds good, right? And then we got so here's that tritone, right? We love that. That's the devil's interval, according to middle-aged monks. What's good about flamenco here is we're getting into the flat 2, right? The B flat to the A, the end of the Phrygian cadence, corresponds to the to the flat 6/5 in a minor key if you're doing a Western harmonic analysis on it. So where were we? So here's that third chord, right? And then of course it really wants to go to here, right? I think it gets delayed a little. I get to this point where my head is so separated from the music that I have to get back into it. There we are. So now this is actually the fifth, right? So we're right on the perfect fifth of A. And here now you get the third, and that's fun. And then there's a nice melody that goes over that, which obviously if I'm playing solo I can't play it, but it's. It's more evident in the multi-tracked track, or when I play it with someone else. I do perform this with other guitarists, and we have fun. And I've been using this one recently because I've been trying to get my head around the altered scale. So you can mess around with different altered scales with this. I don't know how much of a harmony head you are. Where did it go? That's one, and then there's whoops. Anyway, all these notes kind of can work over various of these chords. The way this track is set up in the recorded version, which you can hear, is that this is just kind of repeats, right? Yeah. And it's like, and then I have the sound of like a footstep.
Oh, nice. Oh.
And some, right? And then on top of this comes the guitar melody, and that's a formula I've used for a number of tracks that I've done.
We have a mutual friend in Rosie who comes and teaches your kids.
At my request. Did you know I launched Rosie's teaching career? She just, she is a smart cookie, and it shows in her music, and she's creative, and she's spontaneous, and, she's a special kind of musician and a special person. She's very kind, and, and the way she carries herself is, it's not going to be threatening for kids. That's why I really fell in love with her music, is because she hears it. She plays what she hears, and it's not going to line up with what you learn in music school, and maybe she's breaking rules, or maybe that's just what she hears. And it happens to be really interesting. I mean, I think we all start, as I did before I went to music school, playing what we hear. And, some of us hear things in alignment with these rules of harmony that have evolved since since tempered tuning, hundreds of years, and others feel like we're hearing other things, and I think my taste goes towards like there's certain music goes too far outside the rules to be enjoyable at all, because it's just break, and there's always, you got to balance that somehow. And Rosie's, I think her innate sensibility just goes for something perfectly in balance with weird and yet at the same time cohesive, and not, it's just on the line of being too far out there, but it isn't. So you can take it all in, and it's all in service to the emotion she's conveying. And her lyrics are really, they're so true. They ring very simple and true, all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love what Rosie does. And then all these time changes that are like,
yeah,
it's just because this is the new feeling.
Right.
she chases if you want to pin it down, she chases the feeling.
Yeah, beautiful.
For me, that's always what music is. That's the only reason to play it, frankly. It's not often you encounter someone who both plays interestingly and sings with some creativity in their lyric that matches the music, and it's all in service of this feeling.
Concurrent with all this stuff going on in your life, you're also learning engineering. It has become necessary to have engineering. How does this come up?
You probably don't know Eliot Bates. Do you know Eliot Bates? He was an audio engineer before I was, and he and I kind of partnered up and did a project together. It was called Basquerole. Very heady, weird music. You can check that out. We're on Bandcamp. Basquerole. Eliot's maybe one of the smartest people I know. Into interesting sounds. He's not ready to just let it do another normal thing, So and we had that in common for this project, and so we would take instruments that nobody knows about and make sounds on them that weren't supposed to be made and put all that together. If you want some heady music and it's kind of light, check out Basquerole. So I learned by sitting with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious what you did with it. Are people just hiring you and you're producing records for them?
Most, like last week, I was mixing some stuff for a friend of mine, Seneca Schachter. He's a vocalist who's worked with like Jazz Mafia. Another guy I'm going to be doing some work for later today called, his name's Cameron. He's an Afghan singer. And when I built this space here that you're looking at, it's the interior of an outbuilding. Building the studio, I got into acoustics and how to, you kind of check the room, and I was in that building frame of mind and kept wanting to build. And that led me down this rabbit hole of DIY audio. So I started building preamplifiers and compressors and microphones. You start by kind of like modding a microphone, and then you're like, oh, this is easy. You just pull a component off and put another one. It led me down like a maybe 2-3 year rabbit hole of just building tons of gear that would have cost tens of thousands of dollars, but since I'm building replicas, it didn't. To trick out the studio with this outboard gear, which is fast becoming obsolete, but still fun to play with. And if you know about it, then it's fun to have. And the people who really don't know about it are totally impressed you have it, and they think you must be a good audio engineer.
How did German Sparkle Party
Sparkle
come about?
Party, yeah. So that's fun. So David Wagner. So I lived in Italy for a couple years. There, I worked at a dance label. I had their label was focused on like minimal house, I think is what they called it, and this was in the mid-aughts. And so I got an ear for that style, which was working in Europe in the late 2000s. And when I got back here, I wanted to have a little fun with it. So David and I, we would get together and just horse around and make jokes. Maybe the whole German Sparkle Party idea was already swimming around in his head somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I heard him, goofing around with it, and was like, hey, let's make a track out of it. And instead of using a real kick drum sample or snare drum or hats, I said, well, let's just do beatbox beat, right? And you can hear that if you listen carefully to that track. That happened, and we recorded it, and I didn't bother like tidying it up at all. We'd recorded it, and we thought, hey, this is fun. I sent it off to Ricky, who's the guy I worked with in Italy at his label over there. It's a label called Motivo. I sent it to Ricky, and I was like, hey, man, what do you think of this? Not expecting much. I didn't hear from him for a while, and then a week or two later, he says, Dan, even my secretary who doesn't speak English can't stop singing that. We want to sign it, so... we got so excited. We thought this was like the greatest thing ever. And then we decided we'd make a video, like, oh, we got to make a video. And we enlisted the help of our dear friends, Isaac the girl, who worked, I think, in Hollywood for a while doing costume design and makeup, and Mira Bates, the fantastic belly dancer. If you don't know her, you should check her out. BETZ, Mira. At the time, I was doing like some work helping people with computers, including one of my clients was the Telluride Film Festival, and this lady who was working there was involved with the Ashby stage. So I somehow managed to finagle us renting the Ashby stage, and we went, and then we also filmed at
Urban Ore. I saw a shot in Urban Ore.
We kind of just walked up there and we're like, hey, would you mind if we like filmed out in your sea of toilets?
And then what happened?
It took on a life of its own once that video got to YouTube. Also, I got to say, that video has nothing to do with anything any Italian would ever want to watch. People who focus on being viral on YouTube would probably scoff at the whatever 2-3 million views it has, but it for us, it was a lot,
Right. Well, what blew my mind was that other people were making their own making German Sparkle Party videos as in response.
And I thought, wow, we really hit the YouTube big time here. But
so you talked about getting to a place with music where if you wanted to hear it, you needed to make it. And you're a dad, and you're in the business of music. So if you have a chance, if you have a minute to set a needle down on a record, would you rather just have silence?
You know who I really like? I like Arvo Pärt. And when things get really bleak looking outside and I'm driving around and like all the smoke from the fires have settled in, that there's one called Für Alina. It's a piano piece. And it's just it's like perfect post-apocalyptic music. It's that, and I got my head into him for a minute and started playing a little of, if I can do it, the whole thing. I mean, it's a simple technique he uses. A compositional device. It's called tintinabuli, I think it's called, where the melody is let's say you're in E, I guess. It's always harmonized with whatever chord tone is the nearest one beneath. So you're playing E. To play like a major scale, you do like,
oh,
and then you'd go to, and that's the killer right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I get goosebumps just even from that like horrible rendition of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Because. Right, and then. I mean, what a way to play 1, 2, 3. It just adds this emotional depth, like.
Yeah, just curious. Did you hear Arvo Pärt doing that and then go, "Oh my heart, what's he doing?" and then kind of break it down, or another way?
I went and looked for the score for Für Alina.
Okay.
Because I thought, I could play that on guitar, and I just read through it, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute, what's happening? And then I investigated because I saw with my music brain what was happening. And I said, is that all he's doing? Like, that's what this is?
Wow, Dan, this is so fun. I've really taken you over time, but if we had to go, is there anything you wish you had said, or wish I had asked, or wish to?
I'm for hire as a mix engineer. I'm for hire as a guitarist. I can send you remote tracks. I can teach you remotely. I've been doing some remote lessons. That's working out better than I expected.
This has
been
been
a pleasure.
So cool. My pleasure too.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
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 You're listening to The Leslie Show.